Okay, well, hey everybody, and welcome to everybody who's coming in, and welcome to the event today, Media Trends for 2023, analyzing the trends shaping the publishing and media world. So I'm Mitch Hansen, the Vice President of Marketing at Open Web, and I'm going to be hosting the event this afternoon. So first of all, I want to say thanks for joining. This is going to be a really great discussion about the year that we have coming ahead. Now, obviously, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot going on in the world. So to help make sense of it all, we're joined today by our four very accomplished speakers from the publishing media industry. So I'll introduce them all in a minute. But Katie, Scott, Josh, Dale, thanks for joining us today. And also I mentioned him, Jordan, behind the scenes. Thank you for everything you're doing to make this thing happen. And like I mentioned, I'll introduce everybody in a minute, but before we get started, I just want to very briefly introduce Open Web for anybody here who's not aware of us or maybe not sure what we do. And then we'll get right on with the event as scheduled. So got a little bit of a visual aid up here, and I'll just skip on to the next slide. So Open Web, we are a mission-driven company. We're on a mission to improve the quality of conversations online and to build a healthier web where content creators of all kinds are empowered to thrive. So how do we do that? We build products, and with those products, we partner with publishers and brands to build strong, direct relationships with their audiences. The products that I'm talking about, they empower our partners, mostly publishers, to build vibrant communities that are rooted in healthy conversations and these sort of like robust social experiences. So today, we partner with over 1,000 publishers. Some of them are here on the screen. You recognize them, like New York Times, Yahoo, Hearst, Trusted Media Brands, News Corp, and we host over 100 million monthly active users. So that scale of 1,000 publishing partners, 100 million monthly active users, it gives us some really unique insight into what really works for publishers who are trying to transform their businesses, own their audiences. So if after the discussion today, you are interested in talking with anyone from Open Web, you can always email me. Jordan will put my email in the chat here. You can reach out to respond to any of the emails that we sent leading up to this, or you can just respond to a business development staff. We should be available, and we'd be happy to chat. So for now, I'll introduce all of our guests. So I cannot see them in the order that you can see them in. But let's start with Katie Pillich. So Katie is the Senior Vice President of Revenue Operations and Analytics at the Daily Beast. There, she oversees revenue data and operations across ad sales, programmatic, commerce, and subscriptions. So Katie, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mitch.
Of course. Also joining us is Scott Mulqueen. Scott is the Vice President of Programmatic and Yield at Recurrent Ventures. Scott oversees all programmatic yield management, ad operations business for Recurrent's digital media brands. Scott, welcome in.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay, next we have Joshua Nino. He's the CEO and co-founder at Dexerto, the world's largest esports gaming and influencer media platform. They reach tens of millions of fans every month. Thanks for joining us today, Josh.
Thanks, Mitch.
And finally, we have our own Dale Lovell. Dale was the co-founder and chief client officer at AdUlike, a global advertising platform that Open Web acquired last year. Here at Open Web, he is the SVP of Advertising Partner Success. So great to see you, Dale.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so thanks everybody. Let's get started. So today we're going to cover how a possible recession can impact strategy for publishers and advertisers, how trust and safety initiatives could be affected, the rising concern about advertising's carbon footprint and what a reduced carbon footprint could mean for the industry, the rise of short form video and how the format fits into publisher growth strategies for 2023, advertisers and publishers and how they should best prepare for the deprecation of third-party cookies in Google Chrome, and finally, the future of open exchange programmatic. And time permitting, at the end of that, we'll open up the floor to questions for the audience for anything that we didn't mention that you might want to ask about. Okay, so let's get started. So first topic, this one, like I mentioned, is going to be about the ripple effects of a possible recession. And I promise I'm almost done talking. and we'll throw to our experts. So at this stage, publishers generally agree we are going to see a recession this year. Pretty much everyone agrees. But of course, there's a difference of opinion on how deep it'll be, how long it'll be, how severe it'll be. But right now, regardless, we're seeing media companies move ahead as if we are definitely in a recession. There's headlines about reduced ad budgets, hiring freezes, layoffs virtually every day, every week. So of course, everyone is bracing for a difficult year ahead. So I want to start with Katie on this one, and then we'll go around to everyone. So Katie, how do you think a recession will affect publishers, and what would be the impact on advertisers as well?
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Hi, everyone. I think this is definitely a topic that's top of mind for everyone over the last few months, certainly the last several weeks. And I think for the Daily Beast, we're a news and entertainment publisher here in New York. I mean, we're bracing for certain headwinds, but I think that that's just been a challenge that we've been bracing for over the last several years. If we look at how we geared for 2020, you know, right now we have a little bit more of a time frame to gear up for these headwinds, where in 2020 we didn't have that same notice and timeline. So at the Daily Beast, we really are thinking about like keeping our business moving forward, making sure that our diversified revenue pie is really set up so that we can pivot the way that we did in 2020 and in 2021, and just keeping our heads down so we don't, you know, shift our initiatives and shift our strategies based off of the recession that may be incoming towards us.
And I want to keep going over to Dale.
Cool. Look, I think the first thing to bear in mind with any recession is that there's no recessions are not created equal. There's winners and losers quite often within a recession. And if we look at some of the kind of innovations that publishers make, they'll do what they've always done. They'll cut where they need to. They'll innovate where they need to within the marketplace. You know, something to bear in mind as well is that advertising is driven by profitability. Whether the recession will be long or short is sometimes driven by how profitable companies are. There's still a lot of very profitable companies in operation with deep pockets that will continue to spend. So it won't be an even recession. There'll be winners and losers throughout.
All right, I'll throw it over to Scott.
Yeah, just kind of parroting on Dale's comments on advertiser profitability. I think it's likely what we'll end up seeing as we go throughout the year is a greater expectancy on the branded advertiser side with the limited budgets and investment for increased ROI, right? So maybe mid to lower funnel acquisition efforts will rise to the surface as compared to the last couple of years of, you know, more white glove, high touch, eyeballs focused situations. You know, with a limited investment and limited resource, the squeeze for ROI will probably come to the forefront. So, you know, as best as we as a publisher recurrent can support kind of those mid to lower funnels from whether it's a commerce or affiliate standpoint or opening up programmatic channels and providing the appropriate white glove treatment there. That's kind of where we're prepared to live right now, and at least over the next 6-9 months.
Thanks. And Josh, anything to add?
Yeah, look, very simple. You've got to focus on, certainly we would focus on where you're making money and where you're profitable. Operationally, that is the thing to do, you know. And, you know, while we haven't undergone any layoffs and whatnot, we are seeing a lot in the market, and arguably there's been a heads up, you know, thanks to COVID over the past 2.5 years that have given us notice. No, we knew that, you know, effectively the money that was injected into the economy was going to have to be paid back. So in many ways, and I think it was, I believe it was Katie who said at the beginning that, you know, this heads up has been there for a while now. And really this sort of process of thinking about where you already make money, where you're already profitable, and not necessarily, you know, when it comes to saving costs, but actually where you're recruiting, we have been given notice for a long time. Certainly publishers have been given a long time, you know, as well. And it's quote Dale as well, there are winners and losers, and you know, certainly one of the winners, yeah, you can't say that it's recession proof. That would be a very bold thing to say, but, you know, entertainment, more specifically gaming and probably TV and movie to a degree as well, they represent cheap entertainment. They are super cheap entertainment compared to what a lot of people, will be doing, otherwise. So there are audiences and whatnot that I think are still going to be prime for targeting for a lot of advertisers. We're going to have to focus, on sort of, eliciting that. I think there are other areas, maybe not so much, where there is going to be a struggle, not least because there have been supply chain issues to this point already, and now we're actually seeing the problems of those manifest, coupled with a recession. So there's certainly going to be one of those from an industry standpoint of view, from B2B standpoint, from a B2C standpoint as well. I think beyond operational headwinds, I think perhaps capital markets, M&A, according to analysts, could be due a rebound by virtue of a stock market by around the summer as well, which obviously could open up, let's call it larger players in the way of acquisition to sort of, weather the storm or indeed get ahead of a storm. So I think there are still going to be levers to pull on options depending on the size of the publisher you are, the size of the business that you are, and how far you are down that particular path. But yeah, in essence, some areas are going to be hit worse than others.
Lots of concurrence between everybody. Anybody have anything else they want to add?
Yeah, I'd probably add, there's countless research that's shown that brands that continue to spend through a downturn come out of it far better placed than their competitors who stop spending. So, when we talk about, not to go into too much about kind of the winners and losers, but ultimately we're going to see certain brands, certain opportunities arise during a recession. I started my first business during a recession. It's a good time at times to launch some of this activity. There's a bit more talent on the market. There's a bit more opportunity for savvy publishers to do deals.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if every question moving forward we get this degree of harmony between everybody's answer. So the next one, this is going to be about trust and safety, also in the context of a recession. So in general, I don't think there's going to be a lot of controversy here. I think everyone agrees with the premise of trust and safety's importance. Obviously, no brand wants to be associated with low quality content or toxic behavior or misinformation, whether it's on a social platform or on the open internet. And of course, no publisher wants to release that sort of content anyway. So that said, these strong trust and safety initiatives, they require investments. This technology, people, resources, and as we've established, that's going to be scarce in a sort of recessionary environment. So Scott, I want to start with you for this one. In that environment, do you see trust and safety initiatives continuing to grow? Will social platforms and DSPs keep investing in those kinds of measures, or do you kind of expect them to maybe knock it down the priority list and maybe reveal it was a nice to have all along?
Yeah, my hope and dream is that the advertisers and brands will kind of press the platforms, whether it's a DSP or the social, or even publishers, to maintain some degree of thoughtfulness as it relates to trust and safety. I think the advertiser brands have been learning over the last couple of years about what is appropriate and what is not relative to kind of their stance, and especially towards the end of last year with Twitter and many advertiser pullouts. So my expectancy, hope is, with that slightly diminished investment as a result of macro activities, that one of the items that does come to the forefront is brand and advertiser understanding that they would scrutinize even further kind of where their investment goes and ensure that their contribution to kind of the supply source is the right supply source for them, as it relates to this. Otherwise, what the hell has the learn been for the last 36 months?
Yeah, and Josh, do you have anything to add there?
Look, as you said, I would say, look, it's about avoiding undesirable content, but by extension, therefore, they're looking for content that they find desirable to be associated with. So it's about association, right? So, for me, I would expect to continue to see, DV, Oracle continue to invest, because ultimately, by that definition, it represents a better return for advertisers, right? If you take in the gaming context, there are fine margins between a red blood shooter and a cartoon style shooter take a fortnight and whatnot, right? Even though they're both effectively shooters. So by association, of course, you think that one game is more contextual than another, it's a better return. I would, sort of question whether the need for it just to be necessarily investment in technology. Why not redefining some of these sort of definitions of trust and safety and parameters and whatnot? The fact is that, say, gun, in gaming, in movie, is not the same as gun as in war and crime. And so I think there are much easier steps really to improve the regulation of this beyond, before or in parallel to sort of continued investment in technology.
Oh, and hey, Dale and Katie, I'll throw it in a second. I just want to say to anybody who's watching, if you have any questions that you want to add, like I mentioned at the end, we're going to open up to all the audience questions. Just use the Q&A button so that they all get queued up for us. I saw someone just threw one into the regular chat. We'll grab that one, but for any more that are coming, just throw them in the Q&A. We'll compile them all there. Sorry about that. Okay, Dale.
Yeah, look, just to reiterate what Josh and Scott said, really, I think trust and safety is here to stay. I think it's front and center with a lot of brands, with a lot of publishers, with a lot of social media platforms. You can only see with some of the rulings against big tech have kind of pushed it to the fore. I think publishers demand it of their advertising partners, etc. So I think there's it's hard to ignore in relation to kind of where it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
I can just add, I think this will be an interesting one to watch. I mean, on one hand, as you enter a potential recession, as we talked about earlier, you want to think about putting your efforts where your profits are, but at the same time, publishers or platforms, if you think of Twitter, we have a commitment to our consumers. So trust and safety needs to still be a product that we deliver to those consumers, because at the end of the day, if you lose the trust of your consumers, that's going to impact you much further down the road than a potential recession in the next 18 months or so. And then on the other hand, as Josh was saying, with brands, when they think about where they're putting their dollars and their ROI, they're going to be thinking about making sure that their ROI is as strong as possible. And by narrowing down that supply to make sure it is the most aligned with what the content that they want to be delivering against brand safety, and just having that trust with your brands that you're working with is going to be very much a priority. So I'm curious to see how different platforms and different partners who's in the ecosystem kind of operate against this type of metric in the next several months.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody have anything they want to add before I hop on to the next question? Okay. No, that was really great. So on to the third topic then, this one about the kind of growing awareness of digital advertising's environmental impact. So what we're seeing a lot lately is that brands and users, people working in the media world, are demanding more sustainability efforts from the media ecosystem at large. And this is there's a very good reason for this. And I was very surprised to learn the extent of the carbon footprint of the digital advertising sector. It's very significant. And actually it's like on par with the airline industry's impact by some calculations. So it's no wonder then 76% of marketers agree that their industry is not doing enough to tackle the digital advertising industry's carbon footprint. So Dale, I know you have some strong opinions on this one, so I'm going to throw it your way first. The question being, will online advertisers, again, in the context of a recession, be able to make reducing carbon footprint a priority?
To repeat my answer for the trust question, I think ESG initiatives are here to stay as well. Primarily because for a number of reasons, really. I think one, it's the right thing to do. Everyone's kind of looking at reducing their carbon footprint. Two, I think a lot of this is driven by advertiser needs. The big kind of P&Gs of this world, etc., who put pressure on the chain ultimately to reduce those carbon costs. They want to do it because their customers are in favor of it. So there's pressure there coming all the way up the chain to make that done. Ultimately as well, I think for mission-based businesses and companies that want to recruit the right talent, then you need to have an ESG initiative. So from an internal perspective, if you want to recruit the best talent, you really kind of need to have that in place. Now that may sound a little bit cynical, but it makes all of it plays along to making kind of perfect business sense. You know, I was on LinkedIn this morning, and there's a whole piece on there about kind of climate quitting. Apparently more people work in carbon reduction industries now than in fossil fuels industries. So you can kind of see the headwinds, the directions everything's going there. I think with regards to the advertising and media space, it will only grow as solutions like Scope 3 and innovations like that in the marketplace continue to make a solution that's scalable, that's easy for advertisers and throughout the chain to kind of adopt. It's my take. Yeah.
Yeah. And Katie, do you have anything do you want to add to this one?
Well, sticking with the synergy of today's call, I agree with Dale. I think ESG is here to stay. And personally, I think I guess I was a little bit naive over the last few years in understanding how big of an impact our industry is making to, and seeing this initiative come as like a top priority or a upcoming priority across the board. As a publisher, in the last several months, I've had a few companies reach out to me with potential solutions and making this, something that we can help on our end. So while I do think it is a priority and it's here to stay, and we should all be doing our part, I think maybe this is a bit of a hot take, but from a publisher, these are solutions that tend to fall on publishers. And for publishers' point of view, we're going to have to see how buyers are adopting to these as well. We can't necessarily make much of a change on our own without having the whole supply path be informed and making those changes together.
Yeah.
Just add on that point, sorry, that for example, one of our partners is the Guardian. It's a good example where in the past we weren't, as vendors, being asked those questions about our kind of carbon footprint and supply chain, and really that's more and more to the fore now. The Guardian being a good example where they a big mandate with when they choose their vending partners is based on the kind of ESG capability.
That's pretty interesting. Scott or Josh, you guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so Return was actually founded from a sustainability mindset. So we actually have a division in a group that does focus on that. But what we have been doing is having a number of different conversations with just the tech industry in general to kind of bolster our knowledge. And to Katie's point earlier about being surprised with the degree of carbon footprint that we do cause, that was definitely a shock to myself as well. So from that standpoint, around probably August, September timeframe, we've begun to scrutinize better our ad supply chain and ensure that we're taking the right steps to reduce it, create the right amount of directness from our side in order to kind of contribute back there. So with the hopes that as the ability for advertisers and brands and agencies to begin to measure the effectiveness and the ROI against these efforts and the investment grows, that we'll put ourselves in the position not only to be environmentally friendly, but also friendly to kind of the evolution of this part of the industry and the potential investment and expectations that brands and advertisers will have as we go forward.
Yeah, and look, for me, and I certainly don't mean it cynically at all. But let's be honest, this is shaping up to be a way to win money, right? If you're at the forefront of these sort of initiatives, it's a way for you to, especially if you can activate and show that there was a net zero or carbon negative or whatever sort of footprint to a certain campaign or your general operation. That is a way to stand out. That is a way to show that you are 2023 and beyond, really, right? And we've all been handed that a bit of a leg up in non-auspicious circumstances, but the silver lining to COVID is that a lot more people are working remotely now, you know? So that in itself has obviously been a decent, you know, start.
Yeah, and this is such a huge issue. It's a start, a long way to go. Okay, I got the next question, something a little more short term. And Katie, you mentioned Twitter passingly earlier. So a little bit to do with them as well. This one's going to be about the dominance of short form video. So in 2022, we saw the traditional social media world completely taken over by short form video. The reason's really obvious. TikTok has been eating very significantly into Meta, Snapchat, Twitter's ability to grow, and Google's ability to grow as well with YouTube. So short form video investments have increased over the last year. And as that's happened, we've seen Meta cut their news budget, marking kind of a shift in direction for Facebook. We've seen Instagram's reputation continue to be damaged repeatedly by new whistleblowers all the time. And Twitter is rapidly changing, although I don't know if anyone really knows the exact direction. But in that, there's also even talk of a Vine comeback. So I want to throw this to Josh first. In your opinion, in the year ahead, how do you think publishers should navigate this new kind of short form video first world that we're in?
Yeah. So I think one way to understand its importance is also, and maybe a little bit of, well, certainly this is subjective, but it's based on a lot of data that we've seen, and it's been why we've invested into short form, and that is how people consume editorial. How people consume editorial is changing. And I say that with, you know, one of the biggest gaming websites in the world. You know, editorial consumption is enormously important for us. It's important for us based on, you know, to sustain our tone of voice, our meaning in the space, as a vehicle for commercial activities. But people are changing how to consume editorial. And the fact is, when you go into an editorial, a lot of the time it's going to come from side doors. You know, it's coming from Google, it's coming from search. Is it coming direct? Maybe with some of the legacy publishers, it's coming direct, but truthfully, most of it's coming from search and social. I'd say that for the vast majority of publishers. Any new publisher coming into the fray, certainly, unless they have a certain product or feature, but is deeply engaging in a way that complements editorial enormously, doesn't take away from it. So, you know, people are coming in for what they want. They come through a side door, they know what they want, they're reading it quickly, and then they're diving back out because they probably came from a Google or a social. And if they came from social, that's what the community is. You know, we all want to build an experience on website for people where they really feel that they're invested, you know, from a fan equity standpoint, that this is their website that they can consume along with their 10 other favorite websites, their favorite news, and having navigate that and having enjoy that is enormously important. But a lot of them are coming from social, and that's what the community is. And therefore, what is on social? It's video. And people obviously on social, you're consuming video, you know, 10 videos in 2 minutes, right? How do you consume 10 minutes in 2 minutes? Well, it's got to be short, right? So on a foundational basis, this is, you know, why shorts is blowing up, because of how they're consuming content online and their evolving relationship with editorial. That's why you're seeing a lot of news and headlines saying that, you know, people are now just consuming more news from TikTok or short form. I don't know how wholly true that is. To a degree, absolutely will be and whatnot. But obviously, you know, it's people watch the news is recorded, it's video, it's live and whatnot. So it's not, video and news is not a new alien thing. It's just that people are going to TikTok and Instagram and whatnot to consume a lot of this news. So I think it's vitally important. And that's just sort of, you know, the reason why you have to, the reason why you should is because it's another way to convey your tone of voice. It is not production heavy. It's not cost intensive to do short form video. You absolutely, depending on, you know, I guess I won't call it status because you don't need status, but depending on the role of your brand for users, sometimes status, what you're looking to achieve, you don't even need expensive talent to do this. We've always seen publishers of the past, you know, legacy websites that sort of operate in a way like a TV studio. You know, their publishing model is enormously complex and sophisticated, and they're probably no different to a sort of a bite-sized version of a CNN or a BBC. It's fantastic publishing models, very impressive as a matter of fact, but they use, you know, historically when they've been investing into long-form content, you know, pretty expensive talent. And in short form, you can use your own content creators. It can be a vehicle for your own content creators to actually grow their own profile, grow their own social profiles, which in turn ideally comes back to you as a website. But if you get really good at it, you start to realize that you function as a sort of a talent incubator. because people will come, they deliver your content and news in the way that you structure it and whatnot. They grow their profile, they stay great. If they don't, we move on, and then you continue to grow the next talent and whatnot. So it's operationally super cost effective to do something like this. You just don't need large amounts of investment to do it. And the way the algorithms are working and running at the minute on, you know, your new sort of products, YouTube Shorts, for example, and whatnot, TikTok, we're still in that age where growth is low cost. Instagram is a little bit more different. Twitter is a little bit different and whatnot. Those are sort of, you know, older cases and whatnot, but it's still cost effective to grow your Shorts profile. You know, the algorithms are in your favor now. Right now, you should be there. And if you're not, you're going to end up spending a lot more money in about years, 2 years, 3 years time, when all of a sudden that wave, you know, sort of start to level out because we hit saturation point and whatnot. So now's the time to get involved in it. And listen, beyond tone of voice and users and cross-pollination between across your platform and your assets and whatnot, it's a great vehicle for commercial as well, to activate commercially, to say that you have your own video distribution at that scale, which you can grow it to through Shorts, that it's much more difficult to grow it on a long form basis through traditional YouTube or other and whatnot, or OTT or whatever. You know, this is the way certainly to do it. And this is where we're seeing a lot of success as a result.
Great. Katie, do you have anything you want to add?
So I'm going to switch it up. I don't necessarily agree with Josh on this one. You know, I think from the Daily Beast, we are long form journalism, and that's our core bread and butter. Well, I don't disagree completely with Josh on this. This isn't an area that the Daily Beast is going to go full throttle in, particularly as we enter a recession. I think, you know, well, maybe for some businesses, it might be low cost or cost effective to build that short form video. I don't know if that necessarily applies to all publishers. So it really is about like evaluating your risk and reward. And as we enter the next several months, we're really focused on, you know, honing in on the businesses that drives the best profitability and, you know, our core bread and butter for the Daily Beast. Back when Facebook launched and we saw publishers go all in on the video, the Daily Beast didn't do so, and we were rewarded in the end on that one. And while I do think that, you know, publishers should keep their eye on these emerging mediums of ways to consume content, particularly with new generations adopting and consuming contents in different ways than other demos maybe, then yes, we need to keep our eyes on them. And I think our social team is doing so and you know, testing some of the waters there. But as far as, you know, jumping in with short-term video and trying to shift our strategy, the Daily Beast won't be doing that this year from my perspective. And I think that's just our take, but you know, that may change down the road. Like, I think that there may be opportunities, but there's not really a monetization strategy at this time. And so that's effectively where my head is at when we think about like TikTok and some of these off-platform opportunities or content creators.
I certainly wouldn't think that I wouldn't think that conflicts with what I say. If anything, I would say that's very wise. And it just goes back to the very first question about if we are coming to challenges and whatnot, you know, certainly as a business owner, I would be telling my team focus on where we make money. You know, Shorts has been a fantastic area for us, but obviously right now it's not part of your strategy. Is now the time to be investing into an area that, you know, could take time to build up? I would say no. So if anything, I think would be the wise move, depending on where you're at. If you have a large social presence where short form video can make sense, you can trial it, you know, on as close to risk-free basis as possible. Why not? But if it's got the compromise of areas that you are successful, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else at this stage. It depends on where you are right now, really, and if you have the assets to allow you to do so nimbly and efficiently.
Scott, anything you want to add?
So at Recurrent, we are, except for our ownership of Donut Media and their kind of more long form YouTube video content, we don't really produce that much video at all. So I think, you know, to stay true to kind of our editorial style and brand voice and what we do right and what we know makes money is kind of where our focus will be right now. How that may change in 2024, which seems so far away, but I know it's not, you know, and beyond, there may be a different opinion, but I think as of right now, you know, we're just going to kind of maintain our position, do what we've been doing, continue doing it right, efficiently and effectively, and not spread ourselves too thin laterally and into a place where we don't have the chops to handle.
Makes sense. And Dale, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think I'll defer to the publishing experts on this one in terms of their strategies. But something that I've always found surprising to an extent is there's a lot of publishers out there that do create a lot of short form content, but they only distribute it on maybe TikTok or Instagram. They don't really look at their own owned and operated entities as somewhere where potentially they could host this video content as well. Sometimes there's a fear that the editorial might not like it, or the user base might not like it, but ultimately your readers are on TikTok, are on Instagram anyway. They'll be quite familiar with that format. From a commercial perspective, that opens up some opportunities to claw some of the budget that is going to these social sites through brand advertising onto your sites. So I'd recommend publishers kind of bear that in mind. It won't work for everybody. It won't make sense, but for some publishers, if you're already creating that content, why not host it somewhere else as well?
Yeah, look, a couple of things there that I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to pick up on. First of all, shorts, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and whatnot, all important for us and our direct sales efforts. And most of our money comes from directs, but just the inbuilt monetization alone from your YouTubes, your Twitters, your Snaps it blew up from 0 to 7 figures in less than 12 months for us. So there's money there on an inbuilt basis. When it comes to serving video on site, Dale, I both agree with you so much, and then I'm also like, but is that because we've been there? All our video lives on website, and it's vitally important that it does, and that it's contextual to the website. And I would actually agree with you. What worries me, not worry, but what the challenge is people are consuming more and more video on social because they can consume video easily with one swipe. You're on a video, left, or up, down. And on editorial, you can't so easily do that. This is a challenge to publishing, because I think that if you can create that environment where it's easier to consume contextual video on editorial without having to foot a ton of costs to look after contextuality, the regulation, the monitoring of it and whatnot, the admin of it and whatnot, then absolutely it's a real trick, and it's something to absolutely be done. That's the challenge. But of course, you absolutely want to be leveraging your own assets to publishing your own content and on editorial, and ideally be getting more out of the user beyond just a written word.
Yeah. Like I said, it works for some publishers, it doesn't work for others. There are technology solutions that work, but ultimately it's about maximizing the revenue opportunity for the content you're creating.
Yeah, great. On that, I think everyone agrees. So I want to move on to the next one. This one is about Google's deprecation of the third-party cookie. So for the sake of time, and I want to try to do this one as almost like a lightning round, if everybody's up for it. So this is pretty simple. I'm sure everybody in this audience is very familiar. But way back in August 2019, Google announced Privacy Sandbox initiative, intention to eliminate third-party tracking cookies in Chrome by 2022. 2022 came and went, and we've still got third-party tracking cookies in Chrome because they have postponed this timeline a couple of times. Now they're aiming for 2024. So I'll start with Dale. Do you think Google will stay true to their promise this time around? Can we expect another push? How should publishers prepare?
I think yes, unless the recession is so bad that Google in somehow manages to spin it that by getting rid of the cookies, it would be damaging for the whole economy, for small businesses, etc. as a result. But I think there's been too many delays, and 2024 should be the date.
So we got one yes, they'll stick with it. Katie.
I think they're going to push it. That's my take. But based off of what Dale said, I just think that's, unless there's some outside factors, I think they're going to push it back again.
Cool. And Scott?
I think all things being equal, they'll likely hold true to that timing, but to Dale's point, who knows what actually will happen from a recessionary standpoint. So that is a variable there. But the reality is, as a publisher, more than half our North American traffic is already cookieless, right, on iOS devices or Firefox browser or other browsers that don't support them. So the preparation should have been happening for quite a number of years at this point, and where this is just kind of a, we're ready to go whenever you guys flip the switch, not, oh shit, we have to scramble now because we don't know what to do on, whatever 40% of our traffic.
Yeah, I would just add to that same with Scott. Like, I do think personally that they're going to push it out, but that's not moving or not slowing down any of the momentum that the Daily Beast has done over the last 2.5, 3 years to think about potential cookieless future. And like Scott said, there's already so much upside that we can drive to if we can find solutions that work with that 50% of our inventory that already has no cookies. So.
And Josh, your thoughts?
That is it. What has been said, in all honesty, the past has proven that Google can more often than not do what they want. So let's be honest, let's prepare for, both outcomes. And at the end of the day, there is absolutely very little doubt. Well, there is no downside at all to preparing, your own first party data portfolio and whatnot. As a matter of fact, it's obviously one of the reasons why probably everyone here is in this on behalf of working with Open Web. It's definitely a tool which can enable that. So prepare for it. It's not preparing for the worst. It may be preparing for the inevitable, it may not, but at the end of the day, it's more value to us as publishers, as a group of publishers, in order to do it, regardless of what Google wants to do.
Okay, great. Now we're pretty much at the end of our scheduled time now. We have one question left, and I think we could do this another lightning round for this one. And then unfortunately, we won't be able to get to the Q&A with the audience. If you have any questions though, add them to the Q&A section now. And we will, get you and answer some opinions in the next couple of days. If there's anybody on the panel that you specifically want to direct it to, just include that. We'll make sure we follow up with them. Okay, so last question. This one about Open Exchange programmatic. So we saw a big announcement from Bloomberg at the end of last year, moving away from programmatic, in their words, to prioritize user experience. They want this to translate to increased time on site, more loyalty. Others think Open Exchange programmatic is only going to grow because everyone's looking for ways to trim their ad staff while continuing to scale operations. So we'll start with Katie. What do you see as the future of Open Exchange programmatic? Is this a trend or is this sort of a one-off?
I don't think this answers is black and white to be a trend or not, because I mean, if you look at Bloomberg and their book of business, the majority of their revenue comes from terminal, and that just shows that their business is different than from what, say, the Daily Beast. Like we started off this conversation thinking about the recession, a diversified revenue pie is integral for us to be able to pivot through some of the headwinds that we're going to see over the next 18 months. So I don't think this is necessarily a trend, but every business is unique. So for us, we're going to continue to think about our diversified revenue pie, and open auction is a big piece of that. But every business is unique.
Makes sense. Point taken on the yeah. And Scott, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, same regarding Bloomberg and their revenue model. Definitely different than what Recurrent is doing as a result of kind of their eggs across many baskets. But from the standpoint of my belief is that we'll probably see increasing investment moving down further down the funnel and utilizing the Open Exchange. And it's a great space to test tactics and potentially, as a publisher, secure budgets that you're not even going to be able to have a discussion about on like the PMP front, or even straight white glove IO based direct sales. And from a user experience standpoint, I don't actually think that's much of an issue with the right controls over your supply chain, the right ad experience being presented to your users, and just having reserve pricing controls at your fingertips, and any other third-party tech that can help you avoid some bad UX situations. So there are tools there. It's definitely worthwhile. There's still significant liquidity sitting in that Open Exchange that's worth taking advantage of.
I want to throw it to Josh.
Look, I would say that look, the Certo is we're an independent company. We're not backed by private equity, and on a first principle basis, really, programmatic enabled us to become a startup without private equity and grow. So I hope that it's going to be staying for, I hope I think there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money to be won. You can almost keep yourself off from, from the beginning and whatnot, and sort of grow your business, grow your asset thanks to programmatic and whatnot. It's the best way to do so and whatnot. So I think it's very complementary at later stages as you develop your business to your commercial portfolio, be it, content, be it sponsorship, be it, even custom. It exists there in complement to those, revenue lines. So I think, for some larger companies, very large companies where, sort of going, purely to private marketplace and whatnot, probably be very much a luxury because they can do that because they are sort of big enough to do that. On a first principle basis, programmatic enables new businesses, it enables entrepreneurialism to, as a genesis point to begin and sort of develop their own businesses without necessarily relying on, foreign capital.
Right. And Dale, anything to?
I basically agree 100% with what Scott said. I think any publisher not monetizing their inventory using programmatic open exchange is kind of missing an opportunity. The tools are there for you to put all of the kind of safeguards, etc., and floors and pricing that you need are in place, and it should definitely be part of the mix for the vast majority of publishers.
Okay. All right, great. Unless anybody has anything else to add, I think that's where we're going to have to probably end it. There are, like I mentioned, a couple questions in the Q&A that we've got, but we'll direct those after and make sure we get you an answer. But before we go, I just want to say thanks again, Katie, Scott, Josh, Dale, for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. This was really great. And hey, we'll have to 2024 trends. Meet up again.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers all.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.